Yeah, the thing I find most tricky is when people don't recognize you particularly, but half recognize.
And Richard Curtis, the screenwriter.
Sure.
And we'd been working on a sketch show called Not the 9 O'Clock News in England.
Before the world knew him as Mr. Bean, Rowan Atkinson was a quiet farm boy who could barely speak without stuttering. Bullied, isolated, and written off by classmates, no one imagined he would one day become a global icon. But the moment he stepped on stage, something unbelievable happened. The stutter that controlled his life vanished.
Than most of the characters that I play, who tend to be very selfish or self-centered or self-obsessed in some way, particularly Mr. Bean.
This is the story of how a boy who struggled to speak became one of the greatest silent comedians in history. He is now 70 years old and is opening up about how his childhood tragedy affected his life. At long last, the mute comic was able to share his tale. When a stutter met the stage and lost. The little English town of Consett is the site of Rowan Sebastian Atkinson's birth on January 6, 1955. Out of 4 boys, he was the youngest. Nevertheless, a tragic event transpired prior to his reaching the age of memory. He has only 3 brothers after his eldest brother Paul passed away while he was a newborn. Rodney, an economist and a brother of Rowan's, came close to becoming the head of the UK Independence Party in the year 2000. Rowan had a peaceful and regimented childhood on a farm, but here's the irony. He would eventually become famous for his outrageous and comical character portrayals. A severe stammer began when Rowan was about 5 years old. He had difficulty communicating in class because of his speech impediment. The Durham Corley School was his alma mater. The bullying at that school was quite brutal. Rowan was a timid young man with a rubbery face and a speech impediment, according to employee Canon John Grove. Even his fellow students have said that he resembles an extraterrestrial. Because of their mockery of his appearance and speech, Rowan spent much of his time alone. Tony Blair, who would go on to become Prime Minister, was a student there. Being 2 years younger, Tony recalled how difficult things were for Rowan. An article from 2007 in The Independent highlighted the severe bullying that occurred. When Rowan took the stage, though, an odd thing occurred. His stutter would vanish entirely. There would be absolutely no problem with his performance. The secret to his talent was that traumatic event from his youth. Rowan excelled academically despite the bullying. He was accepted to Newcastle University in 1973 at the tender age of 18 thanks to his exceptional performance in science A-levels. Electrical and computer engineering were his areas of study. He was expected to pursue a career in science or engineering, not comedy, according to many around him. He was 20 years old when he graduated in 1975. Subsequently, he continued a family tradition by enrolling at Queen's College, Oxford. For a highly intricate topic, self-tuning control systems were the center of his Master of Science degree. A PhD program was even initiated by him, although I did not complete it. He sensed a force drawing him away from the path he had been following. Chris Robson, Rowan's teacher, once remarked that he was average student. He changed completely as soon as he took the stage. At that point, the true change started to take place. Rowan became a member of the Oxford University Acting Club and a review group known as the At This Period. He crossed paths with Richard Curtis, a young writer. He would never be the same after this encounter. Their lives would be forever altered by it. While enrolled as a master's student at Oxford University, in 1975, Rowan formally began studying electrical. He published his thesis in 1978 after much investigation. However, his acting time increased. Things become more complicated due to the difference between engineering and comedy. But his technical training never left him. A number of years down the road, he'd be among the first famous people to purchase an electric vehicle. 9 years prior to 2023, he purchased his first entirely electric vehicle, and 18 years prior to that, he purchased his first hybrid. He also shared his thoughts on the environmental impact of electric car technology, drawing on his extensive understanding in the field. However, is this not enough? It was obvious that comedy was his real passion. He felt at home in the theater, a childhood stutter, a lifetime of silence. Then one performance changed everything. His first big moment. His 1979 creation of BBC Radio 3's The Atkinson People was his first major break. Many literary characters, including French philosopher Georges Dupont and Sir Corin Bazin, were portrayed by him. Griff Rhys-Jones oversaw production, while Richard Curtis contributed to the writing. The show didn't get many listeners despite being clever and humorous. Few people heard it because it ran in a slot that wasn't designed for comedic content. Even so, his detractors couldn't deny his talent. Similar to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, it was recorded in stereo. It may not have catapulted Rowan to stardom, but it did prove he was prepared for greater things. Things were rough from 1978 until 1979. On multiple occasions, the BBC turned him down. He was a comedian, but they missed the point. He was discouraged and disoriented. Things were already challenging, and his stutter became significantly worse during the audition and interview processes. He considered returning to engineering instead of comedy for a while. But then a pivotal event occurred. His stutter disappeared whenever he stepped into character, he noticed. He was empowered by the revelation. He could be himself without worrying about sounding flawless. He might delegate speech-making to the characters. Friends from his time at Oxford, such as Angus Dee and Damian Layton, remained collaborators with Rowan. On the radio, they would perform together, with Angus frequently taking on the role of the serious straight man. This allowed Rowan's untamed characteristics to truly show. Angus went on to guest star in Mr. Bean and Blackadder. Even though TV was still turning him down, their collaboration boosted his self-esteem. Without the constant scrutiny of the camera, he was able to blossom. Rowan returned to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival in 1979. He had reached the age of 24. At the brand-new Wireworks Theatre, he was even spotted clearing debris and constructing the stage. Like a classic Buster Keaton film, his show was largely silent. Others noticed something unique, while others just didn't grasp it and left. Unlike most comedians, he made excellent use of his physique and face. Thanks to that performance, he was able to meet influential people in the business world. As early as 1980, he resumed his pursuit of television. In 1979, he made a pilot for television called Canned Laughter. Among his many roles was an early iteration of Mr. Bean. Despite its cleverness, the show was not picked up for a series. Even more nerve-wracking was the fact that his stammer reappeared during multiple auditions, but he started to figure out a way to win. He gave his all to the roles he played. At the age of 25, he had perfected the art of performing around his stutter by the time he made an appearance on Wogan in 1980. Thereafter, the fight came to a close. They mocked him, called him an alien, but what they saw as weakness hid a genius in disguise. Mr. Bean. Then the big launch of Mr. Bean. On January 1st, 1990, 13,450,000 people tuned in to watch the pilot episode. Rowan had conceived of the persona while enrolled at Oxford University many years ago. His subtle performance as Mr. Bean was well received by viewers all over the world. A total of 245 nations bought the show. A total of 18.74 million people. tuned in to see an episode of The Trouble with Mr. Bean. Among the world's most watched comedic programs, it quickly rose to the top. It was funny enough that they didn't require an English dictionary. All boundaries were shattered by the physical comedy. Still, there was a darker side to all that mirth. It was painful for Rowan. He spoke clearly about how much he hated being Mr. Bean. The difficulty was high. He was completely depleted. He described the weight of responsibility as oppressive and admitted that he frequently anticipated its completion. Since the character hardly spoke at all, Rowan had to rely on his facial expressions and body language to convey everything. It was emotionally taxing. The man behind what the world thought was simple comedy was actually going through a very painful performance. Mr. Bean finally got his big screen debut in 1997. Bean earned almost $251 million globally. Foreign markets contributed almost $205 million to that total. With $3.1 million, it debuted at #1 in Australia. It made $2.5 million in its first weekend, shattering all previous records. Over 12 million German marks were made on its first weekend there. It became the fastest UK movie to reach $100 million even before releasing in the United States. However, Rowan felt even more exhausted as a result of all that success. He was already struggling with the character, and now the world wanted more of it. The answer came to him in 2002. He started Mr. Bean, the animated series. It began on March 2nd and ran until November 1st, 2004. The show had 52 episodes. His format was a relief. Rowan only had to do the voice. No more physical work. The show became popular with children and moved to CYTV. It introduced new characters and stayed true to the original. The animated version kept Mr. Bean alive without hurting Rowan's health. The series kept running, and by 2024, it was still being made. In 2012, Rowan brought Mr. Bean back for one more live performance during the London Olympics. He acted out a comedy bit during Chariots of Fire, and 26.9 million people in the UK watched it. Globally, 900 million people saw it. It was one of the most tweeted moments of the night. But the performance took a big toll on Rowan. It left him drained for weeks. Many people now see that moment as his last major appearance as Mr. Bean in full physical form. The shocking reappearance. Rowan made a surprising confession on The Graham Norton Show in 2018. The shoot, he claimed, was incredibly taxing and challenging. It seemed that no matter what he did, it was never good enough. He informed The Telegraph in 2012 that he intended to retire Mr. Bean. He mentioned that it can be disheartening to see an adult in their 50s behaving like a toddler. However, he reconsidered in 2016 and declared he would never let the persona go. Then, in 2018, he changed his mind again and indicated that Mr. Bean probably won't be back. But you can't say never. His inability to shed the persona that catapulted him to fame surprised fans, but it revealed his strength as an artist. Rowan felt the strain and exhaustion that came with Mr. Bean, even though he gave joy to millions. Rowan made a triumphant return to physical comedy in 2022 with the Netflix series Man vs. Bee. His character, Trevor, was a homesitter who was attempting to exterminate a single bee. 10 to 20 minutes were the running times of each of the 9 episodes. Filming was tough for him, even if it appeared to be joyful. Actor Rowan, now 67 years old, was performing exploits reminiscent of his time as Mr. Bean. He claimed that even filming a bike scene in his earlier film, Mr. Bean's Holiday, rendered him physically and mentally drained. He came clean about the fact that he had never been athletic. A throwback to his earlier work, Man vs. Bee served as a sobering reminder that his physical limitations had finally caught up with him. It was Rowan's 70th birthday on January 6, 2025. For nearly 45 years, he had been bringing joy to people from his hometown of Newcastle upon Tyne. The internet went abuzz with his birthday celebration. While many expressed their best wishes and shared their favorite video, others pondered when he may retire. Physical comedy becomes more challenging with age, as Rowan himself has stated previously. The idea of reducing his pace appeared to be more appealing to him. For some, this seemed like the perfect opportunity to bid farewell to Mr. Bean for good. Over 35 million people had subscribed to the official Mr. Bean YouTube channel by September 2025, and the number of views had surpassed 12 billion. Its monthly revenue ranged from $77,000 to $232,000. From 1.5 million to 2.3 million people watched it daily. From Sao Paulo to Mumbai to Tokyo, the character garnered admirers worldwide. Some comedians, including Sacha Baron Cohen, have even claimed that Mr. Bean was an inspiration. Nowadays, students learn a technique known as the Atkinson method in comedy schools. It was a universally accessible silent comedy. Rowan was dubbed the Charlie Chaplin of the 21st century by many. He transcended his role as a mere British actor. A worldwide icon he became. A Mr. Bean fan theory was validated in September 2024. Many thought he was an extraterrestrial being for a long time. In the cartoon episode Double Trouble, that theory was proven to be correct. Within a spacecraft, Mr. Bean encounters carbon copies of himself. Screen Rant said that the program has formally acknowledged his extraterrestrial origin. He was teased right from the start of the first series. A Latin chorus proclaiming, "Behold the man who is a bean, plays as a bean descends from the sky." As if aliens had no concept of human names, he was simply known as Mr. without a first name. Although Rowan had dropped hints about it in 1993, it was now integral to the plot. Upon learning the reality, fans were both astonished and excited. The impressiveness of Rowan's award record belies his self-doubt. Among his 18 nominations, 12 were for major honors, and he has won 12. He took home 2 awards that year, one from Rowan Atkinson in review and one from the British Academy Film Awards for Not the 9 O'Clock News. His 1990 performance in Blackadder Goes Forth was nominated for Best Light Entertainment Performance. His 1991 to 1994 run at the BAFTAs was boosted by 4 nominations for Mr. Bean alone. A Global Emmy was also bestowed to him. Rowan insists he isn't successful despite everything. He is always doubting himself. However, among his legion of devoted followers, his status as one of the all-time greats is beyond dispute. Thanks for watching. If Rowan's journey inspired you, hit that like button. And if you love true stories about people who rise against the odds, make sure you subscribe. There are many more untold journeys waiting for you. See you in the next one.